I drop out again is because I have to restart this thing. So, okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll kick it off because we're already running behind a bit late. And welcome you to this, which I think is our 8th, Michelle, online skills session for District 2.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, people, I'm just super impressed with not only the quality of the presentations we've had to this point, but the level of participation from within the district, and I think probably more broadly across it. So it's just been awesome to watch, and my hats off to those who've been behind this. It's just been great, and we'll continue it for a while longer yet. And we're probably maybe looking for a couple of subjects now as we start to move on. So if you've got something that's really you'd like to see here for discussion, then by all means we'll put it up and we'll see how we go with that. So a few things. It's ironic that we're here tonight and talking about our fire danger period presentations when we've experienced fairly widespread rainfall right across most, if not all, of the state of Victoria in the last 24 to 48 hours. Some would say fairly typically that's what happens when you do declare it, but just for those who may not be in the know, the fire danger period in the far northwest of Victoria is due to commence subject to the Chief Officer's approval on the 19th of October. So that's fairly soon, and it'll roll on fairly quickly after that, right across the Mildura, Swan Hill, Yarra Yambiak into Bull Oak, and then invariably into the Northern Country and into District 2, and then move south as it does. Already we're seeing some drying in the northwest, so the conditions are there, and we are seeing encouraging farmers that I've been speaking to anyway have been pretty encouraged by some of the growth for the most part. It's not the same everywhere though. It is a bit inconsistent. And, some crops have been cut for hay, and there's a lot of hay being cut, which with these current weather conditions we might talk a little bit about. So if I could, it's a proactive and interactive session. So if you've got a question, by all means, Michelle can moderate. But feel free to put your hand up, and we'll have a chat, or you can put your chats into the chat function by the side. I think we've all been getting pretty good with this, so you may be somewhat familiar with it. So this is it, the District 2 pre-season briefing, and really it's about a few subjects, but largely it was about my intent that I would like the brigades and all our volunteers to take forward for this year. So it was back in July that I wrote to every brigade and flagged that this was a different season for the obvious reasons of COVID, and that I would really like brigades to begin their preparations for the summer ahead back then, which was, I don't want to use the word, I'll try to keep it to a minimum, unprecedented, but it was about, for us, geez, we've got a lot of people to get through, entrapment drill and hazardous trees, etc., etc. If we're going to do that, we better start now before whatever happens next might actually bring it to a halt. So it was about that, and really the intent that I had that I would like to have seen brigades and our members undertake back then with the key areas that I saw as being important. Burnover drill, entrapment and hazardous trees as per the Chief Officer's requirement. Now I've got to tell you, folks, there are 4 districts in the northwest region, and I've seen some data the other day that District 2's compliance rate with hazardous trees is around 99.25%. That is outstanding. And I think about where we came from a few years ago when we started talking about hazardous trees, and there was a bit of resistance. Why do we have to do this and why do we have to do that? To get from that point to now a rate of compliance that is almost 100% is just outstanding. So congratulations to you. Also in that regard, the hazardous tree training assessment, again, our numbers are up above that, I think about that 97th percentile. So again, that is just outstanding. So burnover drill, entrapment, right up there, and I'm so encouraged by that sort of commitment from our volunteers. It's just outstanding. So well done, everyone. I really do appreciate that. I also, in my letter, I talked about personal inventory. And there's probably a little bit about this later on. We talk about some of our survey results from last summer. But for a few years now, if you've been paying any attention to some of my correspondence, and I know some people might do it occasionally, I talk about personal inventory, and that is about what you as an individual do to accept responsibility for yourself and get ready for the summer ahead. Sounds like a simple thing, but it's about, am I right? Am I ready? Have I got everything I need? Is my stuff in order? I haven't used this for a while. I might check that. All those sorts of things. So going through your kit, seeing what's in your bag, what's not in your bag, those sorts of things. So for me, some of the things that I look into my personal inventory, particularly my wildfire kit, is does it still fit? Because believe it or not, COVID's had a bit of an impact on all of us, me included, and I may have to loosen the braces off a bit in that regard. Do I have 2 gloves? I don't know how many times I've seen people turn around and only find themselves with 1 glove. Do I have face masks, the P2 masks, dust masks? Do I have all of that things? Do I have that? Do I have something? Some people carry a little bit of food, some muesli bars or something in their pocket. Are they still current, or have the mice got to them? I hope not. Those sorts of things. One of the things I always carry in my kit, or 2 things actually. One is I carry a bandana, not to replace my mask, but it's something I can wet and wear around my neck to help keep me cool. And one of the others, and I know Hugh Kelly's probably got one as well, is a pocket line. It's about 4 or 5 metres of 9mm cord with a carabiner on one end in my pocket. So just one other thing that I carry. I also carry a clean t-shirt and a spare pair of socks, a towel, and a spare pair of glasses. Now that I've got more reliance on needing my glasses to read maps and detailed instructions, those sorts of things. So for me, that's a little bit about personal inventory, and why it's personal, because it is up to each of us. No one fit will be no one fit. So if you've got medication you rely on, make sure that's part of your inventory. If you've got certain things that you may need, sunscreen, that sort of stuff, if you're allergic to the stuff, or whatever it is it might be, make sure you put that in your personal inventory. Anything that anyone else carries, I'm going to throw it open for a moment, in their personal inventory that they think may be of value to anyone else or have found particularly useful to have in their armoury. Michelle, I can see there's some hands popping up. Wendy's got something. Yes, Wendy. No.
We've got Nikki saying backup essential medications on the chat. I can't see their hands, sorry.
Yeah, no, me either.
Yeah, so some Panadol from Kaz.
Yeah. Panadol's a good one. Spare phone charger. Yes.
What is the pocket line used for?
The pocket line is used for, well, it could be simply a matter of sometimes things break and they just need to be tied up. Sometimes you may find yourself using a ladder and you need to tie it off to something. Sometimes you may be holding a branch fighting a haystack fire for a while, and if you can find a fence post or something else to tie it to rather than stand there holding it for 3 hours, you might appreciate those sorts of things. Box of matches, yep. We're starting to see some themes coming out of last week's discussion with Gilly here too, Michelle, I notice.
It's good to see people are remembering. So
yes,
torch, water, sunscreen, personal first aid kit, all very important.
Yep. Yep. And it is each as individual as you are. A whistle and a roll of toilet paper. Yeah, I hope you would use those 2 independently of each other. Spare batteries, yep. I've seen a torch pop up Yep. There's all sorts of things that make up your personal inventory, folks. And have a think about that. And it's always it's compass, matches, whistles. Yep, a knife, all of those sorts of things. When I was a smoker, I used to always make sure that I had a half a packet of cigarettes in my pocket. I'm not condoning that at all. I was just saying that when I was, and I generally hope that someone else had the matches. So there's that about personal inventory. The radio procedures and map reading, I just want to spend a little bit of time on that. We've been doing it for a long time, ladies and gents, but it's about keeping up to date with radio procedures. So particularly in recent times, we've seen a shift from Vic Fire to Firecom, which is consistent with the entire Eastern Seaboard. I think it's probably a nationally accepted call sign for dispatch now in most, if not all, if not most operating environments. So it's about knowing those sort of subtle changes. Some of the changes in regards to radio procedure, in regards to how you activate peers or how you request assistance, those sorts of things. But probably the one thing I want to really emphasise when I talk about radio procedures in particular is about the discipline of the radio. I'm pretty sure we've all, without exception, been to fires where on a particular day, it's a bad day, it's a bad fire, and we're pumping resources into a fire. But the chatter on the radio is just off the scale. So there's a few things I think we can do to help with that. Sorry, the lights have gone out here. Okay, I'm back. I listened quite interestingly, and it's been around for as long as I can remember. So since Noah was playing fullback, I hear trucks arrive on scene, and the very first question is they'll turn to the incident controller or whoever's running the fire and say, "Righto, we're here. Where do you want us?" As if you didn't know, and as if telling you would probably make much difference, because from my experience, a lot of crews and trucks will simply deploy to where the job needs to be done, and that is entirely okay. So my thought would be go where the need is. You would have in your mind a bit of a thought about that prior to. So where there's no instruction, we head to whichever flank is our priority, and in most instances that might be our eastern flank. Don't start at the point of origins. Have a go and move forward to the head of the fire, and if it's safe and you've got enough resources and time to do so, then by all means have a crack. So that's that sort of stuff. The other radio call I hear quite frequently is when a tanker on the fireground runs out of water. Everybody seems to find out that Upper Combukta West tanker's out of water. Other than the crew of that particular tanker, no one really has probably got their hands full and go, yeah, okay, you're going to get water. But it just adds up. And if we've got 50 trucks on the fireground, that's 50 trucks relaying that same message. I just think it's probably something that we could, with a little bit of discipline, work our way around. It may be appropriate in some circumstances, but not others, is my point. And I know there's a personal one, and I might, just about the disciplines when we are interacting with Firecom, is that we just make sure we're using those right pro words to have that interaction so that everybody knows what's going on. Map reading is fairly self-explanatory, but it is really, really important, really, really important. And that's about knowing where you are. If you've got something to report, knowing where it is. And if you see something that requires attention, being able to communicate that to other people. So, for example, it might be a matter of safety. There may be a hazardous tree that a particular map reference that you may need to send out to other crews that are on that particular part of the fireground. Those are the sorts of things. There may be hazards on the fireground, mine shafts, for example. If you know where they are, you can convey that to others. So there's those sorts of things. And the other one that I wanted to report on with the intent was about reporting on compliance, and I did mention it before, was about when our people have done their burnover drill, their hazardous trees, etc., is making sure that we capture that, because I hate to say it, that our databases are not always perfect, and so for us it's about knowing who has undertaken the training so that we can, we can deploy our crews safe in the knowledge that they have done what is required of them to be safe. So it's about that reporting. So it's about capturing who's done it, when they did it, where they did it, those sorts of things. So that's the radio procedures and map reading. And so that's the intent. So just quickly, any questions around any of that for anyone? Okay, we'll keep rolling along. Thanks, Michelle. So what you've got in front of you, many of you would have seen something similar to this before. There's been a number of iterations around this, but really it's a guide, I guess, to what we're trying to convey around what we would like you to consider when deploying to grass fire, and particularly in the grass fire environment, which I've got to say, ladies and gents, is our bread and butter. This is where we excel, in that open country firefighting, rapid moving, fast developing grass fires. That's what we were built to do. That is what our fleet was designed to do. So, if you can, give it some serious thought about having a go at the head of the fire or towards the head of the fire. It could be the difference. But it's got to be safe to do so, and you've got to make that assessment at the time. So what I'm saying is, don't rush in where fools dare to tread, but give it some serious thought, and if you can, always do that. Escalate early. So if you think you need trucks, ask for them. Bear in mind, understand this, and I know you do, but when you pluck a number out of the air, a nice round number, because we tend to work in multiples of 5 or 10. If we say we make tankers 20, that's okay. It's just going to take us some time to do that. And so, Hugh, Darren in particular, feel free to jump in here, or anyone else for that matter. When we make tankers 20, what invariably happens is 20 brigades get paged, but we end up with 40 trucks on the fireground, because a lot of tanker 2s respond as well, which again is okay, but it's something else we have to manage. Any thoughts on any of that from anyone? Making it easy for me tonight. The other one is aircraft. We should all be pretty used to working with aircraft, but quite often you will have the incident controller will talk to the aircraft, to the pilot directly, or the air attack supervisor about tasking. And quite often the incident controller on a going fire has quite a lot of things on their plate at the one time, and tasking of aircraft is one of those things that is can be a little bit difficult, because those above that are flying around have a much more bigger picture view of the fireground than you do. Yes, and so we'll get to that. So by all means, if you've got nothing in there, no tasking for the aircraft, you could always ask them to any assets in the line of the fire to deal with that, and also have a crack at the head and see if it can slow it up. So that would be good. So there was a comment there about tankers 20 and making sure that you've got the number of FCVs coming. Absolutely, absolutely. We do. Some districts do mandate that into their escalation tables, that if you make tankers 10, you get 1 FCV. We haven't done that, and we haven't done that quite deliberately, for the reason that we think there's an element of initiative that the incident controller, those on the fireground, should be able to exert. That is the home brigade, the home cat, and the home group, around how they put their supports together for the fireground in regards to FCVs. We could mandate it, but I'm sort of loath to do that because, well, I think you're pretty good at it, to be honest. There was also a comment, could we just ask that when we escalate that tanker one's the primary response, and that tanker twos perhaps be considered staying at home to look after the security of their home brigade area. So that's something else again to consider on the days. So thanks, Michelle. I think we'll pause for a moment if there's any questions before we go to the boss's expectations. Nothing? Okay. So the Chief Officer has, Andrew Wilson has his hand up. Yes, Andrew.
I do, Bill. We spent a fair bit of time several years back taking all the tanker twos out of our response tables.
Yes.
I don't know how far across the district that went. It was definitely something that happened in the aircraft group at the time, Mount Alex.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It's a good observation and a good point that you make. I think for the most part, it's been done. What we're talking about is the actual deployment of tanker twos. So tanker one goes, and then another crew turns up, and invariably tanker two rolls out the door to the same fire. So that's I think is some of it. So it's probably would you call it a discipline thing? Perhaps, but I'd probably be more inclined to, if it's close and it's local, absolutely possibly tanker twos are an appropriate response. But if we're sending vehicles some distance away on a bad day, the whole point of having tanker two was to protect the home and maintain the security of the home patch. So it's a delicate thing, Andrew, I guess. Largely up to the captains at a local level to control or to manage.
Yeah. And we just had like a gentleman's agreement. Neighbouring brigade, you get both trucks, but if you're stepping over a brigade to go to another one, tanker two stays home. So.
Yeah. Look, a lot of groups have that sort of unwritten agreement in place. If it's within the group, absolutely, it's like, yep. But outside of the group, perhaps not. So, with a little bit of latitude, I think. Okay. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Much appreciated. The Chief's expectations. Michelle, you weren't playing any video here from the Chief, from the Acting Chief Officer, were we?
No, the video doesn't work in this, but people can find the video online. It's probably a bit long for in here, but they can find it through members online. You click on the seasonal focus, which is the first little box that you see in the apps as you scroll down a bit, and you'll find it all in there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michelle. So I won't say anything else on that matter out of fear of being disrespectful to the Chief Officer. If you want to know what Gary's expectations are, then I would encourage you all to go and click on that app. So and see what Gary's saying in the seasonal focus. I don't think his message is that much different, to be honest. Okay, so we might skip ahead to the next one, Michelle. So we're looking at the outlook period ahead. So okay, so I might even defer to some of the experts again, Josh, if you're there. So La Nina means we can expect a normal or delayed start to the season. Okay, well, it is pretty normal up until the last 48 hours, I think. So what they're saying is that we could expect more short duration fires, higher daytime temperatures, but an abbreviated or somewhat reduced or wetter than normal summer. For those of us that can remember, it seems like a pretty normal sort of spring, although a bit wetter than some. But hey, that's how it is. We just have to adapt to it. What is it? This our new normal. Thankfully, if you think back, by this time last year, we had personnel deployed as far north as Bundaberg by this time last year. So the fact that we're not doing that, I'm somewhat relieved, because that kicked off for us in September and was relentless right through till pretty much the end of March. So I'm sort of thankful that we're not reliving that experience. Potential for haystack fires. I've been to I'm sure most of us have been to a number of haystack fires, and I noticed that there was a lot of hay cut and had been dropped, and this rain would be probably playing merry hell with some of that. I don't know if Cole Walker's online. Cole, are you online?
Yeah, I'm there, Bill.
Yeah, so just your thoughts, Cole, as a producer, some of the things around haystack fires and haystack safety, those sort of things?
Yeah, well, the potential this year, Bill, for the crops we've got around the district, anything up to 7 or 8 tonne crops out there for hay, and it's just one of those years if this La Nina is going to continue with, there's been a bit of hay come down around the area, but this coming week could be a lot of hay coming down. It's going to start to warm up next week. So with the La Nina around, getting hay in a bale, and we could have some problems curing hay this year, depending on what the season's going to do. But because the yields of the hay will be 7 or 8 tonne of the hectare crops, it will take some time to cure. We had a big haystack fire last year in Elmore, and yes, it's one of those things I stress with hay sheds, that machinery in hay sheds. Look, we lost 3,000 bales.
Yeah. Thanks, Cole. We might talk a little bit more about some of that stuff later on in the session, Cole, about haystacks and some of the things, the potential risks and some of the strategies for dealing with it. So, because it is a bit, I'm mindful we've got a bit to get through, but absolutely we'll have a bit more discussion later. So fires in the interface, ladies and gents, we had a number of fires last year in and around the city of Greater Bendigo itself, and other areas where we had fires. I think was it Jobs Road? Hugh, Kelly, are you on? Was that the name of?
Bob Street.
Bob Street. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, Bob Street.
Bob Street. Yeah,
I suppose to build the 3 on the interface last year was Bob Street in the Bendigo area, the one in Kangaroo Flat, and also the one at Huntley.
The one at Huntley, yeah, and Huntley was a particular one. So each one of those fires was unique and gave us a bit of a touch-up. Bob Street was fairly complex because of where it was, and the other two, particularly the Huntley fire, was up, and it was up and running at a rate of knots, and it really did sort of highlight the vulnerabilities along our interfaces. So that's just something I think we need to be very, very mindful of along the interface. And so again, it's about the escalation and making sure we bring enough resources to bear on those fires as quickly as possible. There's also about the prevention or the mitigation works that the community could do to help reduce that fire risk on that interface. So rather than having grass right up to the back fence, a mowed strip or a ploughed strip could make all the difference. But we won't dwell on that too much. So there's some talk of above average rainfall. Yeah, I think that's a bit of a Sherlock moment. Absolutely, we're getting that as we speak. But much of Victoria has generally experienced below average rainfall. But I think that's probably some corrective that is being corrected as we speak in some areas. Parts of the Mallee that are dry, the far northwest is still dry, and there are parts across the Mallee and Wimmera that are dry, and parts of the southwest. I think I was talking to, it might have been your good self last week, Hugh. We were talking about the southwest being a bit drier than normal and the yields not being there that they would traditionally see. Okay, thanks, Michelle. Next slide, please.
Can you see the climate outlook overview?
I cannot.
Oh, okay. Anyone else?
No, it's up now.
Oh, there we go. Good.
Okay, thanks. So, look, folks, I'll let you read through that. The blue is saying that we're likely to see a bit more rain, and the red parts are likely to see it's a bit warmer than normal. So we're getting a bit of everything. I think for those of us anyone who's spent any time in the tropics, I had the good fortune to live up there for several years. It's probably reasonable to say that there'll be a few cyclones this monsoon period across the north of the continent. Not to be that I'm trying to outdo Jane Bunn and put her out of a job, but generally those warmer ocean temperatures, are conducive to cyclone development, which can spread inland, and again, that's probably why we'll be seeing some of those increased rainfalls. So again, that is all available on the BOM website. So by all means, track it. And I think the next climate outlook is due in December. So
Yeah, that's right. They do it as a 3-monthly.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, guys. So we're moving on very quickly. The 10 standard fire orders, the watchouts. We all know this, and we're reiterating it, but it is timely that we revisit it. It's about the simple things, watching the weather. I think one of the things, weather and fire behaviour are so joined. The weather directly influences the fire behaviour. So always pay attention to the weather. So make good decisions based on what you're experiencing and what you know. So it talks about escape routes, the communication stuff, the hazards, and I think we're becoming increasingly aware of hazards. But even if I think about some of the hazards we had last year, we had several, I won't call them near misses, I'll call them near hits. One at, was it Pastoria, Hugh? We had the aircraft struck a single return wire.
Yeah, correct, Bill.
Single wire return that very nearly could have ended up in disaster. So as it was one strand of wire strung across the valley, and the machine operating on the fire at Pastoria struck the wire and was forced to put down. So very lucky in that regard. Be aware of the hazards, and again, if I think about that Pastoria fire last year, steep terrain, tough terrain, no place for a CFA tanker, but amazingly we managed to get them in there and get most of them out too, which was just outstanding. But really small but very, very complex fire, and we got a lot of that through the district, folks. So be an observer, people. Don't take anything for granted. Maintain your situational awareness. And I guess the thing is, where it says understand your instructions, if you're not sure what needs to be done, ask. And even if you've had that a couple of times, just go back and ask, just so that we can be abundantly clear that you are asking me to do this. Yes, I am. Okay, fine, thank you. And probably one of the things is in the heat of the battle, cool heads prevail. So I'll just ask that if when we're under the pump, when things are not going well, and we are in a leadership position, is try to take that more considered approach to your decision making. So it's not always easy. I get that. I understand that. Two heads are always better than one. And if you're not sure what to do, again, just ask. And if you think your crew aren't sure what to do, be clear with them. And again, if you think that it's still not getting through, then maybe redeploy to another location and regather your senses and have a think about what your course of action might be. What I'm saying, folks, is nothing nothing is worth us putting ourselves at undue risk. So that's really what the point I'm trying to make there. So thanks, Michelle. I'll go to the next slide. Next slide's about laces. Again, people, we're just reiterating the safety messages here. Are we recording this, Michelle? We are we? Yes. Okay. So I'll pick my words a little bit more carefully. Safety is of paramount importance, and I get it, and we bang on about it, and yet it seems like sometimes fixing some simple safety things it can be incredibly difficult to do. But if you think that our safety is compromised, then absolutely make a decision with that in mind. And if it means that we're not going to do something because you don't feel that it's safe to do so, then that is entirely okay. Absolutely okay. And if you think, for example, some of your members of your crew are not comfortable with what the tasking is or whatever, and you might want to really have a think about that, that is entirely okay too. I would rather that we were questioning what our mission and our objective was and how do we go about that, and actually foolishly or blindly or with a sense of enthusiasm rushing in to try and achieve it. Because sometimes our objectives are set in isolation from the incident, and they're not always set with what you're experiencing in mind. So I will just emphasise that point if I could with everybody. Okay. We'll quickly now, we'll just jump over to 2020 COVID safe response arrangements. Now this promises to be topical, and so I'm more than happy to have the interaction. So it is our preference. Now I get it. It is our preference. May not always be possible that the home crew stays with the home tanker. So that is on the single incident, short duration, less than 24-hour events. That is our preference. That may not always be possible. One of the complexities that is getting apparent to us with in the COVID environment is the need for hygiene and cleaning, etc., etc. So with the DPC and the group officers a few weeks ago, we spoke, and the discussion came up that it might be more efficient or easier to swap out a whole crew and a whole truck in order to provide relief to the fire ground. Again, that's probably why we might want to keep some tankers up our sleeve. Because if we're not able to do that when we change the crew over, we're going to have to clean the truck. It's going to have to be cleaned, all the contact surfaces wiped down and all of those things at this stage with the COVID restrictions, at this stage. Now that may change, and when it does, but at this stage that looks like that's sort of what we're looking at. Utilise your ration packs. That's what they're there for. So we'd encourage you to do that. All of those stores should have or are in the process of going out to locations to make sure that we're stocked up and we've got enough. They're there to use, so please, I'd encourage you to use them. And I know they're not obviously the first, but they'll keep you going. So the question is, who cleans the truck, and do they need to be qualified or trained accordingly? No, you clean the truck. That is, the outgoing shift cleans the truck, and there's no training. It's simple hygiene, wiping down the contact surfaces. Everything I think is in place for that to occur. Wash the truck, hose it down, use the alcohol wipes, those sorts of things. I'm not talking about sterilising the truck. I'm talking about cleaning it. It's just good hygiene. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Good point. There is a COVID cleaning course you can do online if you wish. It's probably that would be, if we were to achieve that, I think that would be outstanding. But that would be great. So again, the personal stock take, look after yourself. And the other one too, ladies and gents, is when you get directions at your staging area, meal halls, travelling by bus, etc., some of the things, it's about, if you get directions around maintaining social distances, then please make sure that we comply with those requirements. Okay. Response arrangements in general, look, pretty simple stuff, everyone. I'm not going to read through them all. I'll leave them up there for a moment for you to digest. It's no different from our usual preparedness activities. And we might go now, Michelle, to our learnings from last season. So, guys, so for those that participated, we made a survey available to pretty much everyone. I think it wasn't limited by any means, whether everybody participated. And we had a pretty good uptake for the district. We would have welcomed more, but it wasn't too bad. But some of the themes that came out of it is that a lot of people, particularly when they responded away, realised the importance of having themselves ready. So understand where they're going, what they're going to do, how long they might be away for, and a couple of people actually expressed some concerns that they found themselves tasked to do things a little bit out of their depth, because no one expected to end up in Malakuta, for example, with a raging bushfire coming towards them. So we had that. Big emphasis come out of the feedback on taking advantage of these sort of sessions in the pre-summer activities. That was really that resonated right through, and the importance of communication within the team. Sounds really simple, but it's really important, because some people we threw together and they were getting to know each other as they were being deployed. So personnel from different brigades, etc., were on a strike team, getting to know each other before they actually found themselves in the thick of it. There's places you can go to get some of that. You can find some stuff on MCOP. If you've got a @CFA login, you should be able to get into MCOP. You can always talk to the RDO or your commander. If you're working through an ICC, by all means, through the chain of command to the ICC, those sorts of things. I'd encourage you to use your initiative, but make sure that you're working within the parameters that are set for you. And if you know a bit, and a lot of us do, and you think there's someone who might be struggling a bit, maybe not know some stuff, then take them under your wing and provide them with a bit of guidance and a bit of mentoring. And every single one of us is always open to learning, I would hope. So my point there is seek to understand. So if you don't understand what it is you're being asked to do, ask the questions so that you know what it is you are being asked to do, and more importantly, the why part. Why am I being tasked to do this? It might not immediately make sense, but it could become apparent later on. That part goes a little bit to the hurry up and wait things that we sometimes experience. Okay, very quickly, Michelle, we'll go to the next one. For anyone who's interested in ICC or does ICC duties, the Kangaroo Ground ICC is temporarily closed. So the Gisborne ICC is going to pick up the bulk of that footprint for Kangaroo Ground. So if you happen to be one of those people who deploys on in readiness days at Gisborne or as IMT personnel, please be aware that the Gisborne ICC footprint is considerably larger than it was last summer. Right, thanks, Michelle. And very quickly into haystacks. So Cole was speaking before, and we spoke about haystacks. So Cole, here's probably your chance to talk about haystack fires again, but the amount of rain we've had on hay that's cut at the moment is probably going to see us in a few weeks' time getting some fires. Would you anticipate, Cole?
Yes, for sure. One of those species a hay before going into a bale is going to be crucial. With the La Nina year, yes, we could have we could well have quite a lot of haystack fires this year. But just talking on our way we treat the fires here, we had a big fire at Elmore in November last year, 3,000 bales. We had machinery in fire as well. Yes, and you must let the fire burn out before putting any water on it, and to put in a good fire break around the shed, and just monitor it, because start putting foam on it, it's just gonna, and water, you're just gonna prolong the fire because of reignition. But the simple things of we had one member carting hay one year, and he could smell like a tobacco smell at a hay processing plant, and the old nose was pretty good, and he picked that there was a bale self combusting in that stack. So there's all these little things that you just got to monitor your stacks, and even with just a steel bar or crowbar. We've got all, especially with moisture testers, test your hay, just keep a good eye on your stacks. Yeah,
good points you raised, Colin. For me, one of the things that sticks out for me around hay that's breaking down is I would assume that a few people may have been to the odd rum distillery in North Queensland or sugar mills and smell that sort of molasses smell that you can. That's not a dissimilar process going on there. Would you agree, Cole?
Yes, yeah, that's the smell. That if you smell anything like that, even in a shed, you might be able to see a little bit of shimmy above the hay. That's just saying there is heat in the stack, and opening stacks up is very very difficult. You best having the fire brigade there. As soon as you open up a stack, you let the air in, you go whoop. So yes, it's just one of those things. And within our area here, we've got 3 processing plants, Fuel Mac, Canloden and Hay Australia, within 80 k's, and they're putting up a new one up and running at St Arna's, and they're talking about another one at Oyen. So it's a big industry now, this hay industry for export. So we could have some, and there's a lot of on-farm storage now, huge big sheds, holding up to 3,000 to 4,000 bales and more. These big hay processing plants, 20,000 bales. Big concerns, and if you get something like that alight, which we have had Gilmac alight at Gilnon, yes, it's a lot of work when you get into haystacks and haystack fires. But every year is different, but we seem to get a haystack fires every.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. I guess the thing is so haystacks, the more you hurry to put them out, the longer we're going to be there, I think, is the message. We can write permits to allow them to burn, so we can do some things. We can arrange for machinery in order to help. So there's a number of things we do, and ultimately we will get down to using water and probably foam, but it's not always the immediate response to a burning haystack. So a couple of hands up, Michelle, that I cannot see. I see them pop up.
I can see that Nick's put a question into the chat session, which is, with haystack fires, is foam a preferred method of attack? And I did speak to Cole about this. So Cole, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, with foam, when you excuse me, when depending on when you get to a job, if it's fully involved, it's pointless putting any foam on it. What we've done, just in our experience, we try to burn a break around the shed and just monitor. The last thing we want is a fire taking off from the main stack. But depending on when you get to it, but it's not in the first instance. If it's up and going, no, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, thanks.
So I've got a hand up from Brian Greenwood. Brian, do you want to go with yours?
That must have been an accident, sorry.
Okay, and otherwise I've got Mike Rogers. Mike, do you want to go ahead with your question?
Yeah, well, has there been any thought given to having some form of liaison with these larger hay merchants, as in someone going out and sort of checking over the places, or not?
In regards to actually when it's burning, Mike, or before it gets to that?
No, prior to that, like, if we know that we're going to have moisture around for the season, would it not be prudent to get strike early before the iron gets hot, and liaise with these people to be on guard for that type of stuff?
Yeah. Look, I guess it would be cold. Go ahead.
Yeah, all this hay that comes into, say, Gilmac or all these exporters, it is tested when the truck goes on the weighbridge. They run the testers over it all, and they can't really bale it into it. It's because when it's exported, this hay's got to go across the equator, and if there's any moisture in that, the container can catch fire on the ship. So they've got to be dead dry for export hay.
Yeah. Thanks, Cole. I guess the thing is, Mike, is that the producers, we're talking a multi-million-dollar business now. This is not just cutting hay for, so they are very, very, there's a lot of science in it.
It's all the sugars. Some years the sugars in hay can be high. This fire we had it for last year, sugars were high in the hay, and just after the fire was over, we had like boulders, the big clink. The sugar level filled up. They're just like big rocks in the hay. So that's the sugar levels. And I'm no expert. I'm just doing what, like most farmers just learn as you go along. But some of these hay exports might be, get some of them on would be a good thing. Like that bloke was asking about it. Would, what they do. But it'd be nice to have a good walk through some of these big export places and just, be mindful of, a rogue bale can get away. There's no doubt about it. Can be missed and too late. So things can happen.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Mike. There's a lot in that, guys, and I'd encourage you to pursue the literature around haystacks. There's a bit that we've produced this year, so and there's always more. I guess the thing is, every summer is different. Every haystack is different. We large one, small one, but it's a multi-million-dollar industry now, and the control measures that I see go into hay production, particularly for export, is quite astounding, really. So look, I'm going to we'll pull it up there for the moment, but I do want to throw the options open, and Michelle, just if you could help moderate if there's any questions from anyone on any matter that we've discussed tonight. I'm more than happy to have that.
Got a couple in the chat section there. So more a comment from Chris. Hay sheds are designed to fall in and keep the fire contained. So you might have a fire, but you also have a shed that is collapsing at the same time because of the heat.
Yep, that is a very perfectly valid observation. Yes, and that just adds to the complexity for us, unfortunately.
Yeah, and so Wendy's just saying, Wendy Pearce, FCV crewing and COVID. Can the penciler crew as well as driver? Can you have a penciler as well as a driver and an OIC in the FCVs? Yeah,
I think we have to, Wendy, in order to. But that would be the crew maxed out in that vehicle. The thing it would require is those hygiene, social distancing, the wearing of masks, etc., etc. So it's a delicate one. We do need to record our message, and I've seen nothing to the contrary that we shouldn't be penciling. We do need a driver, and we do need the strike team leader or the crew leader or whoever is in the passenger seat making those decisions. So there are some things, but with good practices, I think we can work around that. Thanks. I hope that's answered that for you, Wendy.
And from Rob Dawson, how will rehab, etc., work in the COVID era?
That's a good question, Rob. I think it will be a bit of an evolving. Sorry, Michelle.
Brian, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, I could see this happening. So we carry disinfectant on our vehicles to clean all that top, anything that needs to be used by more than one person. So we carry wipes and everything to wipe down seats, the pulse oximeters for health monitoring, so we can disinfect all that on site.
Yep, and I think there's no shortage of equipment available to you, Brian. Would that be a fair call?
No, we've got a fair bit of equipment and lots of cleaning stuff at the moment. So
yeah.
So there's no issues regarding that.
Yeah, so I hope that's answered that. So anything else there, Michelle, from...
That's it. Oh, that's everything in the question. So I suppose if anyone has... Oh, Josh Gamble, RE Wendy's question. CFA's pandemic response team has advised only 2 crew in total. This limits to a driver plus 1. So I suppose maybe we... they haven't updated me, Josh, or Bill, obviously. So, yeah, we'll seek clarification.
Yep, cool, thanks. Tom Morley, question 801.
Yeah, so with brigades and groups being self-reliant for 24 hours of logistics, is there any guidance about catering and criteria with COVID restrictions? That seems to be very common everywhere I go at the moment.
Yeah, look, anything I would say would be at risk of being out of date at the moment I say it, Tom. It would be about, for me, it would be about, it would depend if we were self-catering, I suppose, or were we getting catering in. If we were getting catering provided, then we would assume that catering is compliant with those things. But again, it's about then maintaining the disciplines around the consumption of that food. So I think it would be compliance where we can, well, not where we can, where we must. And then there's a degree of responsibility, I think, on individuals then to make sure that they are minimising their risk to any possible contamination. So it might be one I'll take on notice and provide to the pandemic management team, Michelle, and do that. Can our brigade support cater with sandwiches, etc.? I think if they always have done and have done those proper food handling requirements and maintain the guidance in relation to COVID. But again, I think I'd have to take that one on notice too.
I think also adding to Wendy's, they've got a very good group there that's also associated with the Red Cross. So in cases like that where they're well across food handling, it's probably okay. Yeah,
that would be my thought. Where we do it and do it well, we can continue to do it well. But you know, the ad hoc arrangement, we might want to be a little bit more considered with that. Thanks. Okay. Anything else from anyone else whilst you have me?
Flushing programs, Bill. The way the grass and that's growing, big roads probably start in the north and work south, but yeah, the old wiry wild oats are starting to get tall on roadsides and corners and whatever. But hopefully that'll get done.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good question. So very, very sensitive or aware, I probably should say, about the roadside slushing programs and the growth that we're experiencing. It's intend to be Vic Roads. Of course, the question is when do you start? That'll be the challenge for Vic Roads to do that and then prioritise. But absolutely, I've got a strategic fire management planning committee meeting, I think next week, of which Vic Roads will be there, and we'll be asking them and getting some commitment out of them about what their program looks like this year. So thank you. if there's nothing else, I'll probably we'll pull it up there. But I do want to thank you and just reiterate my most sincere thanks to everyone for the way and the manner in which we've gone about conducting ourselves in this COVID environment. I can only praise you, everybody. It's been outstanding, and it's just something. It is just very, very humbling for me to be in this privileged position and see the way that our volunteers respond.